It was the day when a small colony and an untested Catherian boarding ship attached to the Teguk's hull with a sound like breaking metal. Captain Lee Taeho and his crew stood in the main corridor, hands raised in apparent surrender, while alien soldiers poured through the airlock. The creatures were even more terrifying up close, with gray skin that looked like armor and eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. Mordek, the Catherian ground commander, examined the human prisoners with scientific interest. He had never seen this species before, but they looked disappointingly fragile. Their soft skin and small size made them seem harmless, yet somehow they had destroyed 6 of his ships. "These are the creatures that eliminated our hunting pack?" he asked one of his subordinates in their clicking language. "Yes, Commander. Analysis suggests they used chaotic decision-making patterns that our tactical computers could not predict." Dr. Choi Mi-ra exchanged a quick glance with Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung. Hidden in their clothing were the quantum interference devices they had prepared. The plan was simple in concept, but nearly impossible to execute. They had to plant the devices on multiple alien ships while pretending to be helpless prisoners. The aliens separated the crew into small groups, taking them to different vessels for individual study. This was exactly what the humans had hoped, for though it made their mission much more dangerous. If one group was discovered, the others would have no way to warn them or help. Lee Taeho found himself aboard Vextar's flagship, strapped to an examination table while alien scientists studied him with instruments that hummed with unknown energy. The Catherian commander observed from nearby, his 4 arms moving in patterns that suggested deep curiosity. "Fascinating," Vexatar clicked. "This creature's brain shows unusual activity patterns, multiple independent thought processes running simultaneously. How do they coordinate such chaos?" The human captain forced himself to remain calm while the aliens probed his mind with their scanners. He could feel the quantum interference device hidden in his belt, waiting for the right moment to be activated. But first they needed to learn more about the Catherian communication system. Meanwhile, Dr. Choi Mi-ra was in the engineering section of another ship, pretending to be unconscious while alien technicians examined her equipment. Through half-closed eyes, she watched them analyzing a handheld scanner she had deliberately left in her pocket. What the aliens didn't know was that the scanner was actually recording their technology, learning how their systems worked. The quantum entanglement frequencies they used for communication were more complex than she had expected. The hive mind wasn't just sharing thoughts, it was sharing emotions, memories, and even instincts. No wonder they fought so well as a collective. But it also meant they were more vulnerable to disruption than she had originally calculated. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung was aboard a 3rd ship, locked in what appeared to be a specimen holding area. The Marine sergeant had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission, infiltrating the ship that held human prisoners from the colony. If their plan worked, he would need to coordinate the rescue of 40,000 captives. Through the transparent walls of his cell, he could see rows upon rows of colonists in stasis pods. Men, women, children, all unconscious and connected to alien machinery that seemed to be studying their biology. The sight filled him with rage, but he forced himself to stay focused on the mission. The interference device hidden in his boot was designed specifically for the ship's detention systems. If he could plant it in the right location, it would not only disrupt the Catherian communications, but also unlock all the prisoner containment systems simultaneously. Commander Park So-jin was having the most difficult time maintaining her cover. The aliens had brought her to their weapons testing facility, where they were trying to understand how human technology had proven so effective against their shields. She had to pretend to be terrified while actually memorizing the layout of their most sensitive systems. The Catherian weapons were based on biological technology that could adapt and evolve during combat. But their main weakness was their dependence on the hive mind for targeting coordination. Individual ships couldn't effectively aim their weapons without constant data from the collective consciousness. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo and Ensign Han Bo-young were together on a ship dedicated to communication and navigation systems. The aliens were particularly interested in how humans had managed to make quantum-fold jumps without extensive calculations. They didn't understand that human intuition could sometimes work faster than their computers. Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyun had been taken to the fleet's main engineering vessel, where the aliens were studying human engine technology. What they didn't realize was that he was simultaneously studying theirs, learning how their power distribution systems worked and identifying the critical nodes that kept their ships functioning. After 6 hours of examination and testing, the aliens made a critical mistake. They assumed that humans, like every other species they had encountered, would remain passive and defeated once captured. They began moving their prisoners to a central research station where more intensive studies could be conducted. This was the moment the humans had been waiting for. Dr. Choi Mira was the first to act. During the transport between ships, she activated her quantum interference device and planted it on the communication relay that connected 5 different vessels. The device was so small that the aliens didn't notice it attaching itself to their equipment like a technological parasite. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung moved next. When the guards opened his cell to move him to the research station, he struck with deadly efficiency. Years of military training kicked in as he disabled 2 Catherian soldiers and reached the ship's main computer core. The interference device went directly into the central processing unit that controlled the prisoner containment systems. One by one, the other crew members found opportunities to plant their devices. Captain Lee Tae-ho used the confusion during a medical scan to attach his device to the flagship's main communication array. Commander Park So-jin sabotaged the weapons coordination network during a power fluctuation. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo and Ensign Han Bo-young planted their device on the navigation control center when the aliens were distracted by an engine malfunction that Lim Do-hyun had carefully orchestrated. Then Dr. Choi Mi-ra activated the master control signal. All 6 quantum interference devices began broadcasting simultaneously, flooding the Catherian communication network with chaotic data patterns that human minds had created, but alien computers couldn't process. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the entire alien fleet, the hive-mind connection collapsed. For the first time in their history, individual Catherian soldiers and ship commanders found themselves cut off from the collective consciousness that had guided their every decision. The results were catastrophic for the aliens. Ship commanders, who had never made independent decisions, found themselves paralyzed by uncertainty. Weapons officers couldn't target effectively without constant data from other vessels. Navigation systems failed as pilots tried to coordinate movements without the shared consciousness that had always directed them. But the humans weren't finished. As the alien fleet descended into chaos, Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung's interference device activated the secondary protocol Dr. Choi Mi-ra had programmed into it. Every prisoner containment system in the fleet shut down simultaneously, releasing 40,000 colonists from their stasis pods. The freed prisoners, led by Governor An Seok-jin and other colony leaders who had been captured in the initial assault, began taking control of the ships that held them. They were scared and confused, but they were also angry, and they had the element of surprise. On Vextar's flagship, the Catherian commander was experiencing individual thought for the first time in his life. The sensation was terrifying and overwhelming. Without the comforting presence of the collective mind, he felt alone and vulnerable in ways he had never imagined possible. "What is happening?" he demanded of his subordinates. But they were as confused and frightened as he was. None of them knew how to function as individuals. Captain Lee Tae-ho, no longer pretending to be a helpless prisoner, stood up from the examination table and looked the alien commander in the eye. "You made a mistake when you attacked humans," he said calmly. "We don't think like a hive mind. We think like individuals who choose to work together. That makes us stronger, not weaker." The quantum fold beacons that Dr. Choi Mi-ra had hidden throughout the fleet activated, and the scattered human crew members began teleporting back to the Taeguk. The ship's power systems, recharged during their time as prisoners, came online at full capacity. Commander Park So-jin appeared on the bridge in a flash of quantum energy, immediately taking her position at the weapons console. "Captain, the alien fleet is completely disorganized. Their ships are drifting without coordination. Some are actually firing on each other because they can't tell friend from foe." Dr. Choi Mi-ra materialized at her station and began coordinating the rescue operation. The colonists are taking control of 12 alien vessels. They're requesting assistance with navigation and weapon systems. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo appeared at the helm and began plotting attack vectors. Sir, we have a C. The alien fleet closed in around the damaged Taeguk like vultures circling wounded prey. Captain Lee Tae-ho watched 23 enemy ships form a perfect sphere around his vessel, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Each ship was larger than his own, and together they represented enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Power levels at 30% and rising, reported Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyun from Engineering. But we won't have weapons or shields online for at least 15 minutes. Commander Park So-jin was studying the tactical displays with growing frustration. Captain, they're not attacking. They could destroy us right now, but they're just waiting. Dr. Choi Mi-ra looked up from her sensor readings with a puzzled expression. I'm detecting massive data streams between their ships. Much more communication than before. It's like they're having a debate. Ensign Han Bo-young was monitoring the alien communications with her equipment. Sir, I'm picking up new transmission patterns. They're different from the battle coordination signals we heard earlier. These seem more analytical. On Vextar's flagship, the Catherian commander was indeed engaged in a heated discussion with his subordinates. The destruction of a full hunting pack by a single human ship had shocked the entire fleet. Such a thing had never happened in their long history of conquest. The prey species exhibits unprecedented tactical adaptation, one of his officers reported. Their decision-making patterns are chaotic and unpredictable. They appear to act on emotional impulses rather than logical calculations. Vextar's 4 arms moved in patterns that indicated deep thought. This makes them dangerous in ways we have not encountered before. We must study them before we destroy them. Back on the Taeguk, Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo was working to restore the navigation systems when he noticed something odd. Captain, their formation isn't optimized for attack. It looks more like a research configuration, like they're trying to scan us. Lee Tae-ho realized they had a brief opportunity. The aliens' scientific curiosity was buying them time, but it wouldn't last long. Dr. Choi, what have we learned about their weaknesses? Mi-ra pulled up her analysis data on the main screen. Their hive-mind connection is their greatest strength, and their biggest vulnerability. They share information instantly, but they also can't act independently when that connection is disrupted. The quantum interference we used earlier proved that. But the effect was temporary, Park So-jin pointed out. They adapted to our interference patterns within minutes. That's because we were using a general disruption field, Mi-ra explained. But if we could target the specific quantum frequencies they use for communication, we could cut their connection entirely. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung looked up from his Marine tactical station. Doctor, are you saying we could make them fight as individuals instead of as a collective? Exactly. Without their hive-mind coordination, they'd be just like any other species. Maybe even weaker since they've never learned to think for themselves. Lee Tae-ho felt a spark of hope. What would we need to create that kind of targeted interference? Dr. Choi Mi-ra's fingers flew over her controls as she ran calculations. We'd need to get much closer to their ships to analyze their exact communication frequencies, and we'd need to modify our quantum fold engines to generate the interference instead of using them for propulsion. So we'd be giving up our mobility to shut down their coordination, the captain summarized. That's a hell of a gamble. The debate was interrupted by an alert from Ensign Han Bo-young. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the colony. The aliens are loading their last group of transport ships. They're almost finished harvesting the population. Through the long-range sensors, they could see the horrible truth. New Busan was burning. The Catherian ground forces had systematically stripped the colony of everything valuable, including its people. Transport ships loaded with human captives were beginning to lift off from the planet's surface. How many? Lee Tae-ho asked quietly. Han Bo-young checked her readings. Approximately 40,000 colonists have been taken aboard alien vessels. The remaining 10,000 appear to be in underground shelters that the aliens haven't breached yet. The crew fell silent as they absorbed those numbers. 40,000 people stolen from their homes, probably destined for slavery or worse. 10,000 more waiting to be captured, and here they sat, surrounded by enemy ships, barely able to keep their own vessel running. Commander Park So-jin broke the silence. "Captain, even if we could disrupt their hive mind, we're still outnumbered 23-1. How do we fight? That many ships?" Dr. Choi Mira had been thinking about the same problem. "We don't fight them all at once. We fight them as individuals, one at a time. Without their collective coordination, they won't be able to work together effectively. But first, we need to get close enough to analyze their communication frequencies," Lee Tae-ho said. "And we need a way to survive long enough to make it work." That's when Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung had an idea that was even crazier than the captain's quantum jump maneuver. "Sir, what if we don't try to survive? What if we let them capture us?" Everyone turned to stare at the Marine sergeant. "Explain," the captain ordered. Yoon Jae-sung stood up and activated a holographic display showing the alien fleet formation. "They're not trying to destroy us right now, because we're the first prey species that's given them a real fight. They want to study us, which means they want us alive. You're suggesting we surrender?" Commander Park So-jin asked with disbelief. "Not surrender. Infiltrate." Yoon Jae-sung's eyes were bright with the possibilities. "If they bring us aboard their ships to study us, we get access to their technology. We can analyze their communication, systems from the inside, and plant interference devices on multiple ships at once." Dr. Choi Mira was already working through the technical aspects. If we could get quantum interference generators onto even 5 or 6 of their ships, the disruption would cascade through their entire fleet. Their hive mind would collapse completely. "It's suicide," Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo said flatly. "We'd be walking into their ships with no way to escape." "Maybe not," Lee Tae-ho said slowly. "The quantum fold engines are designed to work over short distances without extensive calculations. If we could create fold jump beacons on their ships, we could teleport back to the Taeguk once the mission is complete." Commander Park So-jin was studying the tactical possibilities. "It could work, but the timing would have to be perfect. Once we disrupt their hive mind, they'll realize what's happening and try to destroy us. That's why we don't just disrupt their communications," Dr. Choi Mira said with growing excitement. "We overload them. Instead of cutting their connection, we flood their network with so much chaotic data that their collective consciousness breaks down permanently." The plan was insane, dangerous, and probably impossible, but it was also their only chance to save the remaining colonists and strike a blow against the alien fleet that would be felt across the galaxy. Lee Tae-ho looked at each member of his crew. They were all young, all scared, but all willing to risk everything for the people they had sworn to protect. This isn't just about saving the colony anymore. If we can prove that humans can defeat the Catherian Empire, we'll be giving hope to every world they've threatened. The alien ships were beginning to move closer, their sensors probably detecting that the Taeguk's power systems were coming back online. Soon they would either attack or attempt to capture the human vessel for study. "All right," the captain decided. "We're going to let them take us. But we're going to make them regret it." Dr. Choi Mira began preparing the quantum interference, devices that would hopefully destroy the alien hive mind. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung readied his Marine squad for the most dangerous boarding action in human history. Commander Park So-jin programmed the ship's weapons for a final desperate attack if their plan failed. They were about to walk into the belly of the beast, armed with nothing but human ingenuity and the desperate courage of people who refuse to give up. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved countless species, but they had never faced humans before. They didn't understand that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing left to lose, except their determination to make the other side pay for every victory. The Taeguk powered down its weapons and allowed the alien ships to surround it completely. To the Catherians, it looked like surrender. To the humans, it was the beginning of the most audacious counterattack in the history of warfare. The Taeguk burst from its hidden hangar like a black arrow shot into space. Captain Lee Tae-ho felt the ship shudder around him as the experimental quantum fold engines fought to maintain stability. Warning lights flashed across every control panel, and the artificial gravity fluctuated with each power surge. "Hull integrity at 85% and dropping," reported Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyun from the engineering deck. The engine synchronization is off by 12%. I can compensate, but not for long. Dr. Choi Mira worked frantically at her station, trying to bring the adaptive weapons online while the ship was still accelerating. Captain, the plasma cannons are responding, but the targeting AI is confused. It's never seen anything like these alien ships before. Through the main viewer, the alien fleet looked like a swarm of deadly insects surrounding Harmony 7. The largest ships were massive and bulky, covered in what looked like living armor that pulsed with purple energy. Smaller, faster ships darted between them like predators hunting for prey. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo was pushing the navigation systems beyond their tested limits. "Sir, I'm detecting 6 ships breaking formation to intercept us. They're moving, faster than our intelligence estimated possible." Commander Park So-jin studied the tactical display with growing concern. Those are hunter-killer ships designed to eliminate lone targets. Each one is twice our size and probably has 3 times our firepower. Lee Tae-ho watched the alien ships approaching on his screen. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. Their weapons were already charging, energy building along their hulls in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Ensign Han, any luck with their communications?" he asked. Han Bo-young shook her head. "I'm picking up data transmissions between their ships, but it's not like any language I've ever heard. It sounds more like computer code, like they're sharing thoughts directly." The first alien ship came within weapons range and opened fire without warning. Purple energy beams lanced through space, and the Taeguk's shields flared as they absorbed the impact. The entire ship shook and several control panels sparked with electrical feedback. "Shields down to 70%, reported Lim Do-hyun. That was just their opening shot." Dr. Choi Mira's fingers flew over her controls as she tried to get the adaptive weapons to respond. "The AI is analyzing the alien energy signatures. It's trying to match our weapon frequency to their shield harmonics, but it needs more data." "Then let's give it some," Lee Tae-ho said grimly. "Commander Park, return fire all available weapons." The Taeguk's plasma cannons fired for the first time in actual combat. The beams of superheated energy struck the alien ship's hull, but they seemed to have little effect. The enemy's armor absorbed the impact and actually grew brighter, as if feeding on the energy. "Direct hit, minimal damage," Park So-jin reported with frustration. "Their armor is adaptive, just like ours, but more advanced." The alien ships closed in from multiple directions, their movements perfectly coordinated. They fired in sequence, each shot timed to hit the Taeguk, just as its shields recovered from the previous attack. It was like fighting a single enemy with 6 bodies, all sharing the same mind. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo threw the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for a normal vessel. The quantum fold engines allowed him to bend space slightly, making the ship appear to be in one place while actually being in another. Several alien shots passed harmlessly through empty space where they thought the Taeguk was located. "Nice flying," Commander Park So-jin called out. "But they're adapting to our movement patterns. The next round of shots will be more accurate." Dr. Choi Mira suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. "Captain, the adaptive weapons AI just figured something out. These aliens fight like a hive mind, but that means they have predictable patterns. If we can break their coordination—" "Do it," Lee Tae-ho ordered. The next barrage from the Taeguk was different. Instead of trying to damage the alien ships, directly the plasma beams were modulated to create interference patterns. The energy struck the alien vessels and spread across their hulls like digital static, disrupting whatever signals they were using to coordinate their attacks. For the first time since the battle began, the alien ships hesitated. Their perfect formation wavered as individual captains tried to make decisions without guidance from the collective mind that usually directed them. "It's working," Park So-jin shouted. "Their response time is slowing down. They're not sharing information like they were before." But the effect was temporary. The alien ships quickly adapted to the interference, modifying their communication frequencies to work around the disruption. Within minutes, they were coordinating again, and now they were angry. The alien fleet commander, Vextar, watched the battle from his flagship with growing interest. In hundreds of conquests, he had never seen a prey species adapt so quickly. To Cytherian tactics. Most civilizations fought in predictable patterns that could be easily countered, but these humans seemed to change their strategy with every attack. Interesting, he clicked to his subordinates. These creatures fight with individual initiative rather than collective efficiency. How wasteful yet effective. On the Taguk, the crew was learning the same lesson from the other side. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung was monitoring the alien ship movements from his tactical station. Captain, they're trying to surround us. Classic hunter-killer formation, but they're moving like they all share the same brain. That's because they probably do, Dr. Choi Mira said. I'm detecting quantum entanglement patterns in their communications. They're literally sharing thoughts in real time. Lee Tae-ho realized what that meant for their chances. If they think as one mind, then they can predict our tactics once they understand them. But it also means they can't improvise like we can. He had an idea that was completely insane and might get them all killed. But fighting a conventional battle against 6 ships was certain death anyway. Lieutenant Kim, I need you to do something that's not in any flight manual, he said. Can you use the quantum fold engines to make micro jumps during combat? Kim Hyun-woo's eyes widened. Sir, that's incredibly dangerous. The fold calculations take several seconds to compute safely. If we jump without proper calculations, we could materialize inside an asteroid or tear the ship apart. What if we don't calculate? Lee Tae-ho asked. What if we just jump on instinct? Every human officer on the bridge looked at their captain like he had lost his mind, but Dr. Choi Mira slowly began to nod. The alien hive mind would never do something that dangerous. They can't understand making decisions based on feelings or guesses. It's too chaotic for them to predict. Commander Park So-jin checked her weapon systems. If we're going to try something insane, I suggest we make it count. I can overload our plasma cannons for a single massive shot, but it will drain our power reserves completely. Do it, Lee Tae-ho ordered. All hands, prepare for emergency. Jump. This is going to be rough. The Taeguk suddenly vanished from normal space, reappearing directly in the middle of the alien formation. The enemy ships, which had been moving to surround the human vessel's previous position, were now completely out of position and firing at empty space. For exactly 3 seconds, the human ship was in the perfect position to attack all 6 alien vessels at once. Commander Park So-jin fired the overloaded plasma cannons, sending a massive burst of energy in all directions. The adaptive weapon AI, finally understanding its enemy, modulated the energy to match the exact frequency that could penetrate Cytherian armor. 3 alien ships exploded immediately. 2 more were severely damaged and began drifting helplessly through space. The 6th ship, furthest from the explosion, was still functional, but its weapon systems were offline. Impossible, Vextar hissed from his command ship. No prey species has ever eliminated a hunting pack so quickly. But the victory came with a price. The Taeguk's power systems were completely drained. The quantum fold engines were offline, and the shields were down to 15%. They were stranded in space, surrounded by the alien fleet, with barely enough power to maintain life support. Captain, Dr. Choi Mira said quietly, we did it. We actually did it. But now we're sitting ducks. Lee Tae-ho looked at his crew, all of them exhausted but proud. They had just proven that humans could fight aliens and win. But the main battle was still ahead, and they had used up most of their advantages in defeating the hunting pack. Chief Lim, how long until we have engine power? He asked. 20 minutes for basic propulsion, came the reply from engineering. 2 hours for full jump capability. Through the viewer, they could see the massive alien fleet beginning to turn toward their position. Dozens of ships, each one capable of destroying them easily. The element of surprise was gone, and their experimental weapons were depleted. But somehow none of the crew felt defeated. They had faced impossible odds and survived the first round. Now they knew the aliens could be beaten, and they knew their ship could fight. The real test was just beginning. The attack came without warning at dawn. Dr. Choi Mira was reviewing the overnight signal data when her computer screen suddenly filled with red alerts. The mysterious transmissions had stopped completely, replaced by something much worse. Her Instruments were detecting massive energy signatures approaching the planet at impossible speeds. "This can't be right," she whispered, checking the readings again. According to her sensors, dozens of large objects were entering the Harmony 7 system. They were bigger than any human ships ever built, and they were moving in perfect formation. Young Ho burst into the laboratory, his face pale with fear. "Doctor, you need to see the visual feeds from our deep space telescopes." The images that appeared on the main screen made Mira's blood run cold. The objects were ships, but they looked nothing like human vessels. They were dark and twisted, covered in what looked like living armor that pulsed with alien energy. Some were massive and bulky, clearly designed for heavy assault. Others were sleek and fast, built for hunting. "Get me Governor On immediately," Mira ordered, her hands shaking as she reached for the emergency communication device. But it was too late for warnings. The alien fleet, commanded by Vextar from his massive flagship, had been watching the human colony for weeks. The Catherian Empire had detected the radio transmissions from New Busan months ago, and they had come to harvest. Vextar stood in his command chamber, his 4 arms manipulating holographic displays that showed the human settlement below. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved countless civilizations, and harvested the resources of entire star systems. To him, the humans were just another primitive species to be collected and studied. "Begin the assault," he commanded in his harsh, clicking language. "Capture as many specimens as possible. Destroy any resistance." The first wave of alien ships descended through Harmony 7's atmosphere like falling meteors. Their weapons began, firing before they even became visible to the colonists below. Beams of purple energy struck the colony's communication arrays, power plants, and defensive installations. Within minutes, New Busan was cut off from the outside universe. Governor An Seok-jin was drinking his morning coffee when the ground shook beneath his feet. Through his office window, he saw explosions lighting up the sky. The peaceful morning was shattered by the sound of alien weapons and the screams of terrified colonists. "Emergency alert," he shouted into his communicator. "All citizens to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill." But many of the warning systems had already been destroyed. Families ran through the streets carrying their children, trying to reach the underground bunkers that had been built for asteroid strikes and natural disasters. No one had ever imagined they would need protection from alien invaders. The second wave of attack was even worse. Ground assault ships landed in the colony's main square, and creatures that looked like nightmares stepped out. Mordek, the Catherian ground commander, was 7 feet tall with gray skin covered in natural armor plates. His soldiers moved like insects, fast and coordinated, sweeping through the streets with weapons that could stun or kill with equal ease. "Collect the young and healthy ones," Mordek ordered his troops. "Kill any who resist. Burn the rest." On the hidden moon base, alarms were screaming through every corridor. Captain Lee Tae-ho ran to the command center where his crew was already at their stations. The Taeguk sensors were tracking the alien fleet and the numbers were terrifying. 37 ships, reported Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo. "The largest ones are bigger than our space stations. The smallest ones are still twice the size of our heavy cruisers." Commander Park Sojin was studying the tactical display with growing horror. "Captain, the colony's defenses are already gone. Their orbital platforms were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. The ground installations are being overrun." Lee Tae-ho watched the real-time feeds from New Busan. Buildings were burning, people were running. Alien soldiers were herding civilians into transport ships like cattle. His hands clenched into fists as he saw a Catherian warrior strike down an elderly man who couldn't move fast enough. "How long until our systems are fully online?" he demanded. Dr. Choi Mira looked up from her control station, sweat beading on her forehead. "The Taeguk is only at 60% operational capacity. The quantum fold engines need another 12 hours of calibration. The adaptive weapon systems aren't fully synchronized with the targeting AI." "We don't have 12 hours, Lee Tae-ho said grimly. "Look at those screens, we don't have 12 minutes. The alien assault was systematic and brutal. The Catherians had done this many times before. They knew exactly how to break a civilization's will to resist. First, destroy their ability to communicate and call for help. Second, eliminate their military forces. Third, terrorize the population into submission. In the colony's emergency shelter beneath the government building, Governor An Seok Jin was trying to coordinate the defense with what few military personnel were stationed on. Harmony 7. Most of them were just security guards and police officers. They had training for dealing with criminals and civil emergencies, not alien invasion forces. "Sir, we've lost contact with the orbital defense grid," reported Security Chief Park Min-ho. "The aliens took out our communication satellites in the opening attack. We can't even send a distress signal to Earth." Through the shelter's reinforced windows, they could see alien aircraft patrolling the skies. Occasionally, purple energy beams would lance down from the ships, destroying buildings that might contain hidden resistance fighters. The aliens weren't just conquering the colony. They were preparing to strip it bare. Back on the moon, the debate in the Taeguk's command center was growing heated. Commander Park So-jin was arguing for caution. "Captain, if we launch now with incomplete systems, we'll be destroyed before we can help anyone. We should wait for the main fleet to arrive from Earth," but Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo had run the calculations. "The nearest Earth fleet is 18 days away at maximum speed. The colony will be completely harvested by then. There won't be anyone left to save." Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung spoke up from his position at the Marine Operations Console. "Sir, I'm seeing thermal signatures of civilians being loaded onto alien transport ships. They're not just killing people, they're taking them." Dr. Choi Mi-ra felt sick as she realized what that meant. The aliens weren't just invading, they were harvesting. Humans like crops, probably for slavery or worse purposes. Every minute they waited meant more people would disappear forever. Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyun was monitoring the ship's experimental systems from the engineering deck. "Captain, I can give you 70% power if we skip the safety protocols. The quantum fold engines will hold together for at least one mission, maybe two." Ensign Han Bo-young looked up from her communication station. "Sir, I'm intercepting alien transmissions. I can't understand their language, but the patterns suggest they're coordinating a complete harvest operation. They plan to strip the entire colony and leave nothing behind." Lee Tae-ho closed his eyes for a moment, weighing the impossible decision. Launch an untested ship with an untrained crew against impossible odds, or let 50,000 innocent people be enslaved or killed by alien monsters. When he opened his eyes, his expression was hard as steel. "All hands to battle stations," he commanded. "We launch in 30 minutes. Dr. Choi Mi-ra's fingers flew over her control panels, bringing experimental systems online that had never been tested in combat. "Captain, I should warn you, we have no idea how the adaptive weapons will perform against alien technology. The AI targeting system might not recognize their ships as threats." "Then we'll have to teach it," Lee Tae-ho replied grimly. On the colony surface, the situation was growing desperate. The aliens had captured the main hospital and were systematically removing patients and medical staff. They had surrounded the schools and were loading children onto transport ships. The underground shelters were being breached one by Catherian soldiers who seemed to know exactly where to dig. Mordek stood in the colony's central square, watching his soldiers work with cold efficiency. In his experience, human resistance would collapse within hours once they realized how hopeless their situation was. Every species eventually broke, but he had never faced humans before. He didn't know about their stubborn refusal to give up, even when facing impossible odds. He didn't understand their willingness to sacrifice themselves for strangers. These were traits that the Catherian hive mind found incomprehensible and inefficient. As the Taeguk prepared for its first and possibly final mission, the crew knew they were humanity's only hope. They were about to face an enemy that had conquered worlds, commanding a ship that might fall apart around them. The odds were terrible, the mission was probably suicide, and they were completely outgunned. But they were human, and humans had never learned when to quit. The morning sun rose over New Busan colony, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. The air smelled fresh and clean, carrying the scent of growing crops from the vast fields that stretched beyond the settlement. Governor An Seok-jin, stood on his office balcony, watching the colonists begin their daily work. Children played in the streets while their parents prepared for another peaceful day. New Busan sat on the planet Harmony 7, a world so perfect for human life that the first explorers could hardly believe their luck. The soil was rich and fertile. The weather was mild and steady. There were no dangerous animals or deadly diseases. It seemed like paradise. The colony had grown from a small outpost to a thriving community of 50,000 people in just 10 years. Farmers worked the fields, growing food not just for themselves but to send back to Earth. Scientists studied the planet's unique ecosystem. Engineers built better homes and facilities every year. Everyone had a purpose, and life was good. Dr. Choi Mi-ra arrived at her laboratory early, as she did every morning. She was the colony's head scientist, responsible for studying everything from the soil composition to the strange energy readings they sometimes detected in space. Today felt different, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the unusual radio signals her team had picked up the night before. "Good morning, Doctor," said her assistant Kim Young-ho as he entered the lab with a cup of coffee. "The overnight scans are ready for review." Mi-ra took the coffee gratefully and looked at the data on her screens. The radio signals were getting stronger. They seemed to come from beyond their solar system, but they followed no pattern she recognized. They weren't natural phenomena like pulsars or cosmic radiation. These signals seemed purposeful, almost like someone was trying to communicate. "Have you shown these to the communications team?" she asked. Young-ho shook his head. "I thought you should see them first. They're not coming from Earth or any of our other colonies. The transmission pattern is completely unknown." Meanwhile, on Harmony 7's small moon, something much more secret was taking place. Hidden inside an artificial crater, a massive facility buzzed with activity. This was not just any research station. It was humanity's most classified military project, and very few people in the galaxy knew it existed. Captain Lee Tae-ho walked through the corridors of the hidden base, his boots echoing against the metal floors. At 35 years old, he was young for a ship captain, but his skills had earned him the most important assignment in human space. He was in charge of testing humanity's first truly advanced warship. The ship was called the Taeguk, named after the symbol on the Korean flag. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The hull was sleek and black, covered in armor that could change its properties based on what weapons hit it. The engines used quantum fold technology that could bend space itself. The weapons were unlike anything humans had ever built before. "Captain," called Commander Park So-jin as she approached. She was his tactical officer and expert in weapons and combat strategy. "The morning tests went well. The adaptive plasma cannons are responding better than expected." Lee Tae-ho nodded. "Good. How long until we can run full combat simulations?" "Doctor, Choi says another week, maybe 2. The AI systems are still learning how to coordinate with human decision-making. It's more complex than we thought." The captain looked through a window at the massive ship in the hangar below. The Taeguk was humanity's answer to the growing dangers in space. Earth's government had received disturbing reports from the frontier worlds. Strange ships had been spotted near several colonies. A few remote outposts had gone silent without explanation. Something was out there, and it might not be friendly. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo was at his station in the ship's bridge, running navigation tests. The quantum fold engines could move the ship faster than anything humans had ever built, but they required perfect calculations. One mistake could tear the ship apart or send it to the wrong part of the galaxy. "The fold space equations are stabilizing," he reported to the engineering team. "We're getting consistent results within acceptable parameters." Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyan monitored the engine systems from the engineering deck. Every system on the Taeguk was experimental. The reactor that powered the ship was 3 times more efficient than standard models. The shields could absorb energy from enemy weapons and redirect it back at attackers. The armor could repair itself if damaged. It was like something from a science fiction story, except it was real. Dr. Choi Mi-ra arrived at the secret facility later that morning, traveling by shuttle from the colony. She worked for both the civilian research program and the military project. though she couldn't tell anyone about the military side of her job. As the ship's chief systems engineer, she was responsible for making sure all the experimental technology worked together properly. "How are our quantum processors handling the load?" she asked Ensign Han Bo-young, who managed the ship's communication systems. "Better than expected," Han Bo-young replied. "The AI is learning to predict what the crew needs before they ask for it. It's almost like the ship is becoming part of the team." That was exactly what Dr. Choi Mi-ra had hoped for. The Taeguk wasn't just a warship. It was designed to work with its human crew in ways no previous ship ever had. The AI could process information and make suggestions, but it always left the final decisions to the humans. This combination of artificial intelligence and human intuition was supposed to give them an advantage over any enemy they might face. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung led his Marine squad through combat training exercises in the ship's special training rooms. These rooms could simulate any environment or situation using advanced holographic technology. Today they were practicing boarding actions against unknown alien vessels. None of them had ever fought aliens before, but military intelligence suggested it might happen someday. "Remember," Yoon Jae-sung told his squad, "we don't know what we might face out there. Stay flexible, stay alert, and trust your training." Back on the colony, Governor An Seok-jin was meeting with the settlement's council leaders. They were discussing expansion plans for the next year. The population was growing and they needed more housing, schools, and medical facilities. It was a good problem to have. "The harvest this year will be our best yet," reported the agricultural coordinator. "We'll have surplus food to trade with other colonies and even send some back to Earth." Everything seemed perfect, but Dr. Choi Mi-ra's mysterious signals were getting stronger. By afternoon, her team had detected similar transmissions from 3 different directions in space. They were definitely artificial and they were definitely getting closer. As the day ended, Captain Lee Tae-ho stood in the Taeguk's command center, reviewing the final system reports. Tomorrow they would begin the most important tests yet. If everything went well, the ship would be ready for its first real mission within a month. He looked at his crew, all working hard to prepare humanity's most advanced weapon. Commander Park So-jin was studying tactical scenarios. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo was reviewing navigation protocols. Dr. Choi Mi-ra was calibrating the experimental systems. They were all young, but they were the best humanity had to offer. None of them knew that tomorrow would change everything. The mysterious signals that Dr. Choi Mi-ra had detected were not from fellow explorers or peaceful aliens wanting to make contact. They were from something much more dangerous, something that saw humanity not as friends to meet but as prey to be hunted. The peaceful colony of New Busan would soon face its greatest test, and the untested prototype warship hiding on their moon would be humanity's only hope for survival. But tonight, as the alien sun set over Harmony 7, everything was still quiet and safe. The last thing Governor An Seok-jin did before going to bed was to look out his window at the night sky. The stars looked beautiful and peaceful, just as they always had. He had no way of knowing that among those distant points of light, death was traveling toward his world at incredible speed. Tomorrow would bring the end of humanity's innocence among the stars. The Taeguk struck like lightning through the confused alien fleet. With the Catherian hive mind shattered, their ships moved like lost children, unable to coordinate their defenses or even identify which vessels were enemies. Captain Lee Tae-ho watched as the adaptive plasma cannons tore through alien hulls that no longer knew how to adjust their armor effectively. "Target their command ship," he ordered Commander Park So-jin. "End this." The weapons officer's fingers flew over her controls as she locked onto Vextar's flagship. The adaptive AI, now fully synchronized with human tactical thinking, calculated the perfect firing solution. The plasma beams struck the alien command vessel's bridge, burning through armor that tried desperately to adapt but couldn't coordinate its changes without the collective consciousness. On the dying flagship, Vextar felt something no Catherian had ever experienced before: complete isolation. Cut off from the hive mind, he was truly alone with his thoughts for the first time in his existence. The sensation was more terrifying than death. Impossible, he whispered in his clicking language as explosions tore through his ship. Single mind. Creatures cannot defeat the collective. The mathematics are wrong. The universe is wrong, but the universe wasn't wrong. The Catherian Empire had simply never encountered a species that combined individual creativity with collective purpose. They had never faced beings who could think independently while still choosing to work together for a common goal. Dr. Choi, Mira coordinated the rescue operations from her station while simultaneously monitoring the battle. Captain, the colonists have secured 15 alien ships. Governor An is requesting permission to engage remaining enemy vessels. Lee Tae-ho smiled grimly. Even untrained civilians could fight effectively when they were defending their families and homes. Tell the governor he has permission to engage. And remind him to target their communication arrays first. Keep them isolated from each other. Lieutenant Kim Hyun-woo was weaving the Taeguk through the alien fleet like a dancer, using the quantum fold engines to make impossible maneuvers that left enemy gunners firing at empty space. Each time an alien ship tried to target them, he would fold space slightly and appear somewhere else, confusing their aim and giving Commander Park clear shots at their weak points. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung was coordinating boarding actions against alien vessels that were trying to escape. His Marines, transported by quantum fold directly onto enemy ships, found the Catherian crew members huddled in confusion, unable to mount effective resistance without their collective consciousness to guide them. It's like fighting children, one of his Marines reported over the communications link. They don't know how to react when they can't share thoughts with each other. Chief Petty Officer Lim Do-hyun was pushing the Taeguk systems beyond their design limits, but the experimental technology was finally proving its worth. The adaptive armor was learning from each hit, becoming more resistant to Catherian weapons with every exchange. The quantum fold engines were operating at efficiency levels that surpassed even Dr. Choi Mira's most optimistic projections. Ensign Han Bo-young intercepted a final transmission from the dying alien fleet. She translated the message for the bridge crew. Command to all vessels, retreat immediately. The prey species has broken our connection to the collective mind. We cannot fight as individuals. Return to Catherian space for analysis and regrouping. But most of the alien ships couldn't retreat. The quantum interference was still disrupting their navigation systems, leaving them stranded and vulnerable. Of the original 37 vessels that had attacked Harmony 7, only 8 managed to escape into hyperspace. The rest were either destroyed or captured by the combined human forces. As the battle ended, Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on his bridge and looked at the tactical display. Where once there had been an overwhelming alien fleet, now there were only debris fields and captured vessels. The colonists had not only survived, they had won a complete victory against an enemy that had conquered entire star systems. Casualty report, he requested quietly. Dr. Choi Mira checked her medical scanners. 1,700 colonists were killed in the initial attack. 3,000 more were injured during the rescue operations. But Captain, 46,300 people are alive and free because of what we did today. The numbers were sobering. Nearly 2,000 people had died because the humans hadn't been ready for the attack. But tens of thousands more would have died or been enslaved if the Taeguk hadn't been there to fight back. Governor An Seok-jin's voice came over the communication system from one of the captured alien vessels. Captain Lee, I don't know how to thank you and your crew. You saved our world and our people. But more than that, you've shown the galaxy that humanity won't bow down to alien oppression. The aftermath of the battle brought sobering realizations along with the celebration. Dr. Choi Mira's analysis of the captured alien technology revealed the true scope of the Catherian Empire. They had conquered 47 different star systems, enslaving or destroying dozens of civilizations. Humanity's victory at Harmony 7 was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. Captain, she reported during the debriefing, the aliens' databases contain information about their entire empire. They have fleets 10 times larger than what attacked us today, and now they know that humans can defeat them. Commander Park. So Jin was studying the tactical implications. They'll be back with better tactics and stronger ships. Our surprise advantages won't work twice. But Lee Tae-ho wasn't discouraged. Then we'd better be ready for them. This battle proved that human courage and creativity can overcome alien technology in numbers. We just need to make sure every human world has the tools to fight back. The data from the Taeguk's experimental systems revolutionized human military technology almost overnight. The adaptive weapons that had learned to counter alien defenses became the standard for all new ships. The quantum fold engines that had allowed impossible maneuvers were installed on every vessel in the human fleet. The AI systems that had learned to think alongside humans became the foundation for a new generation of warships. Sergeant Yoon Jae-sung's intelligence about alien weaknesses led to the development of specialized weapons designed to disrupt hive mind communications. Every human colony received quantum interference generators that could protect them from collective consciousness attacks. Within 6 months, construction began on an entire fleet of ships based on the Taeguk's design. The new vessels were named after famous battles in human history: Marathon, Gettysburg, Stalingrad, Incheon, and dozens of others. Each ship carried the lesson learned at Harmony 7, that individual human creativity, combined with collective human determination, could overcome any enemy. The colonists of New Busan rebuilt their settlement, but it was different now. Guard towers watched the skies, and every citizen trained in basic combat techniques. The peaceful farming colony had become humanity's first fortress world, a symbol of resistance against alien oppression. Dr. Choi Mi-ra established a research center on Harmony 7, dedicated to studying captured alien technology and developing countermeasures against future attacks. Her work would eventually lead to humanity's first faster-than-light communication systems and defensive shields that could adapt to any weapon. Captain Lee Tae-ho and his crew became legends throughout human space. Their names were known on every world, and their tactics were studied in every military academy, but they remained humble about their achievement, always emphasizing that their victory had been a team effort that included everyone from the Taeguk's engineers to the colonists who had fought back against their captors. The Catherian Empire would indeed return, just as Dr. Choi Mi-ra had predicted, but when they came back 2 years later with a fleet of 300 ships, they found humanity ready for them. Every human world was defended by weapons that could disrupt hive mind communications. Every human ship carried adaptive technology that could counter alien tactics. The Second Battle of Harmony 7 lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of the Catherian invasion fleet. This time, no alien ships escaped to report back to their empire. As Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the new Taeguk-class battleship Incheon, watching the debris of the alien fleet drift through space, he reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate battle. Humanity had gone from being victims to being the hunters, from being harvested to being the ones who protected other species from Catherian slavery. "Captain," reported his new communications officer, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from 17 different Catherian worlds. They're requesting terms for ending the war." Lee Tae-ho smiled. The species that had once thought humans were primitive prey animals was now begging for mercy. But humanity had learned more than just how to fight from their conflict with the aliens. They had also learned the value of showing mercy to defeated enemies who were willing to change. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender," he ordered. "But the terms will include the freedom of every species they've enslaved and full reparations for the worlds they've destroyed." The galaxy would remember the Battle of Harmony 7 as the moment when humanity announced its presence among the stars, not as victims or conquerors, but as protectors of freedom and justice.